This is a guy so powerfully transformed by Jesus Christ that at his death, he was able to speak the words of Jesus Christ. Because he was full of Jesus. He was a guy who spent time abiding in the presence of Jesus, in prayer, listening to the apostles' teaching, doing life and faith alongside the rest of the people in the church. You don't have to have a title to turn the world upside down. Like Stephen wasn't a pastor. He wasn't one of the 12 apostles. He didn't have a job the world would look at and look up to. He waited on tables because waiting on tables is what was needed. And yet God used his faithfulness in that and through that to completely change the history of the world. I mean, his life got cut short, but it's going to echo for eternity because of the way that he lived and died. And it all started with his willingness to step up and serve. Like the widows needed food, and so he just brought his best to that situation. I love what Nicole said last week. God isn't asking us to be the best. He's just asking us to bring our best. You guys, when we all bring our best, the church is at its best. That's what caused it to grow explosively and turn the world upside down in the first century. It was just a bunch of people showing up and meeting whatever needs were in front of them. Like not long after the events of Acts 6 and 7, this Roman Emperor Julian, who was one of the foremost persecutors of the early church. He was so evil, he earned the nickname Julian the Apostate. He wrote, "The infernal Galileans," which is what he called Christians, like these stinking Christians, feed our poor as well as their own. And another observer said, "The Christians spend more money on the poor in the streets than the followers of other religions spend in their temples on their gods." Like Christianity shook the foundations of the Roman Empire because people showed up and gave. I think if you're anything like me, sometimes it's easy to sit back and wait, to just look for like the exact right moment and the exact right position that lines up directly with your gifts and the exact right financial situation and then the exact right before you start doing the things God's tugging at your heart for and serving and giving the way that he's calling you to do it. You're like, I just gotta wait and see what happens. But Stephen met a need that was right in front of his face because that was the need in front of his face and God used it to change the world. There's an old football adage that I think applies to the church. It's Bill Parcells originally, I think. He said, the best ability is availability. I think sometimes when it comes to the things of God in our broken world, the best ability we can bring to him is just availability. That's what Stephen brought, and God worked through him to change the world. Second thing I want us to understand about how to live and breathe and move and be in the world from the life of Stephen is that you have the privilege of entering into God's presence. This is kind of the big idea of Stephen's message. This is the reason the priests freaked out and the Sanhedrin, went all toddler and like, we can't hear what you're saying. We're going to throw rocks at your head, tell your dad. Because he basically told them, we're all priests now. All of us have access to God. That curtain that separated off the Holy of Holies. No one could go behind that. Like God's presence was behind the curtain and everybody else couldn't quite get to it. It tore in two the second Jesus died. And so now we all have access to the presence of God, not just the priests. I don't know what you think of when you hear the word priest. For me, for most of my life, when I hear the term priest, this is what I picture. All right? Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom messed me up as a little kid. The Raiders of the Lost Ark was such a good movie. And then I watched this one. I was like, my parents shouldn't let me watch this. I'm not going to sleep for a week because that was a bad priest, dude. All right? Or if you grew up Catholic, a lot of us grew up Catholic, this is probably what you picture when you think, much different, totally different, much better version of priest than that last guy. But here's what I want us to understand. The kind of priest that Stephen is talking about are a lot closer to the first guy than the second guy. See, in the ancient Near Eastern world, priests had an important cultic function in every society. They were the ones who went into the presence of God or the gods on behalf of other people. Because back then, people were smart enough to know, I don't belong before the throne of a god. I'm too messed up. I'm too broken. I can't just walk into the presence of God all on my own. I got to send somebody different than me, somebody better than me, somebody who's holier than me. I got to send in an expert, and that's what the priest did. The priest went into the presence of the gods on behalf of all the nobodies who couldn't go before God on their own. And so, in Stephen's world, that's what the priests did. In the temple, that's what the priests did. They went to God because nobody else could get there. And here's the deal. I think for all of us, like the thing underneath all of our things, like we all have issues, right? You may have a counselor or a therapist you talk to your issues about, 2 thumbs up for that, but the issue behind all of your issues, the thing underneath everything else is what the philosopher Paul Tillich called existential estrangement. Like we know, just like the ancient people know, like something inside our souls is convinced of it, we are cut off from God. Like somehow, some way, we're cut off from relationship with our Creator and cut off from relationship with each other. We are existentially estranged. The door of heaven is shut to us, and we don't know what it takes to open it. And we're pretty convinced that no matter what we do, and no matter what boxes we check, we're never going to be able to earn our way back to God. And we're right about that. We're right about that. And in ancient times, what happened was some priest would perform some ritual that was supposed to make that okay for a little while. And then Stephen came along. He said, it doesn't work like that anymore because we have one who went all the way into the presence of God for us, who opened the door of heaven, who went behind the curtain on our behalf, and now through him, we have access to. He lived a perfect life, so he was worthy to stand in God's presence. And because of him, we are worthy to stand in the presence of God too. We are all priests. Peter tells us that in 1 Peter, that we are a chosen people and a royal priesthood. That all of us at every moment have access to God. And so you don't need me. You don't need a holy man in a holy place performing a holy ritual in order to have access to God. Not anymore, not because of what Jesus did for us. You guys, if you've put your faith in Jesus, you have access to the presence of God in every single moment of your life. And not only that, as we talked about a few weeks ago, the Holy Spirit of God lives and dwells within you. And that's what got Stephen killed right there. He said, we are all priests and we all have access now. But believe it and take advantage of it. Because the third thing I want us to see from his life is that when you abide in Jesus, you live like Jesus. When you abide in Jesus, you act like Jesus. I'll be raw, gut level honest with you. I read Stephen's story, and I really like to be the kind of dude who's like, I could see myself doing that, but I don't always know that I would have done what he did. There's a lot of choices he made where like, I don't think I would have done that. Like, first of all, there were some hungry widows, and he was like, I can feed the widows. I'd like to believe I would have checked that box. But then he spoke boldly instead of shrinking back in the face of death. Not confident I would have checked that box. And then finally, he forgave his killers as they were unjustly throwing rocks at him until he died. And I'm almost certain I couldn't have pulled that off. Like I look at my life and I think I'm a little bit more vengeful than merciful. Like I like revenge. I like getting people back. I'm not good at it, but I do enjoy thinking about it. All right? Like a couple weeks ago, my neighbor kept parking in front of my house. And I was just like, you have your whole own house. Why are you parking in front of my house? And so one day after work, I was like, I'm going to give him back. I'm going to park in front of his house. So I got my bag. I threw it in the car. I pulled up. I parked in front of his house. And then I looked at my door and I was like, that feels far. Like, how am I going to be walking like 100 feet when my driveway is wide open and I can walk maybe 10 feet? So I just parked in my driveway. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I could though. At any minute, I could get him back for parking in front of my. That's how dumb and lazy I am, all right? And Stephen, on the other hand, is out here like being killed saying, God, would you please extend grace to these people? And what's fascinating is that his last words sounded a whole lot like Jesus' last words. On the cross, Jesus said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And as he fell to his knees, Stephen said, Lord, don't hold this against them. Like this is a guy so powerfully transformed by Jesus Christ that at his death he was able to speak the words of Jesus Christ. Like how? How? Because he was full of Jesus. He was a guy who spent time abiding in the presence of Jesus, in prayer, listening to the apostles' teaching, doing life and faith alongside the rest of the people in the church. And he was so full of Jesus that when he got bumped, Jesus is what spilled out.